Bournemouth 1, Everton 0, another defeat for Sean Dyche's side on the road. Another defeat for Everton, who are getting closer and closer down to the bottom three in the Premier League. I've got Rob with me right now. Matt's going to join us when he's been able to find conveniently some sort of internet connection. So he's going to have to join us and talk about this one, Rob, sadly. I mean, this was amongst the worst. I said the half-time's probably the worst game of football that I've seen, both professionally, amateur or otherwise. That's not all Everton. There was another team involved in that game. But you could be forgiven for thinking that it was just watching something that you've been punished rather than paid to watch, and you'd not want to be an Everton fan watching that performance. And very much the same was in the second half. And I just want to start you with this question. The way in which this was set up by Sean Dyche, I mean, if you look at statistically, we've set up with a 4-3-3 formation. Was there anything in that performance initially that you saw early on in that game that looked any different to you? Any more positivity, which I'm assuming you're going to say no to, or anything that you thought, oh, do you know what? We're actually trying something different here.
I mean, not really if we're talking about the attacking side of things. And I guess through large portion of the match, I suppose if you want to squint, you could say they're making all the little plays to hang on here. They're doing enough to keep Bournemouth out of the net. But I think that in and of itself, when you have to squint just to find that as a positive, Dave, it really kind of speaks to the larger issue, the larger picture of what we have to watch every single week. You know, like the Bournemouth fans chanting, "How can you watch this every week?" I mean, that's a perfectly fair question. As loud, stadium chanting goes, Dave, I felt like that was actually a very fair question. You know, I mean, it certainly beats the hell out of punching down on those less fortunate and some of the chants that we normally get. But I think what you've just asked there, Dave, sort of speaks to the situation that we find ourselves in, which is that Sean Dyche's plan, his approach, and the way in which the players execute it has a very narrow path to success. And two, what that success actually looks like, according to the manager, is squeezing out a point for the most part. You know what I mean? And so when your goals are very low, and then your path to even achieving a low goal is so narrow, you get a lot of what we saw today. And look, I don't think any of us are pretending that this is some, uber talented squad that is just suffering under the weight of a particularly rigid manager. I mean, it's more than that, clearly. But I think it's also clear that I don't know if it's clear, Dave, and maybe I'd like your thought on this too, but say what you want about this collection of players. I just have a hard time believing that you couldn't get a little more out of them. I mean, 0 shots on target in 90 minutes is unacceptable. And I think that we've gotten to the point where to continue to persist with this, and it only taking the opposition really just finally mustering up enough to get over the line and to be able to do that against us consistently. I mean, I think here's the thing. If Everton is a one-dimensional side, which I think we all kind of agree that Everton at their quote best right now under Sean Dyche is a tough to score on side that will occasionally squeeze out a draw. If that is your one dimension, what happens when you play a side that really doesn't seem to have much trouble with your one dimension? And despite the fact that Bournemouth only scored the 1 goal today, it felt through long stretches throughout that goal was coming. It felt like they weren't really having trouble with what we were putting up in terms of opposition. And so I think now I don't know how many times I have to get on here and have the same conversation. You could say that's probably, if there's something that ought to go on the Blue Room crest, it is how many times can we have the same conversation, But I mean, look, this is done. It's cooked. And any talk of we all saw that headline, I think, making the rounds the last couple of days, that a lot of the Everton players are behind Dyche. Well, if that's even true, A, I can tell you probably which players are the ones behind Dyche. And B, I don't want a bunch of bad footballers on a bad team having any say about who the manager ought to be. This is terrible. It's got to stop. And this is that opportunity that is either coming here in the next couple of days or is coming soon, but it's coming, for the ownership to get the fans on their side a little bit and to take some decisive action. But the longer this persists for these kind of imagined reasons of, we've just got to hang on, and this is the manager that can help us hang on, I just think that the case for that becomes weaker and weaker with every passing match.
Matt's joined us now. I don't think he wanted to. I think he wanted to have his internet not working to talk about this and everything that's gone on down in Bournemouth. So much so there, Rob, you said we talk a lot about this. So much so me and Matt have swapped roles today. Question I've begun to ask Rob, Matt, was, did you notice anything different that he'd gone about this game in terms of setup? I mean, it says generally it was a 4-3-3. I didn't really see that myself when I was looking at the prep for this. On various websites and whatnot, looking ahead to this, the way he set up in terms of personnel. What did you feel going into this? Did you think there was anything that looked, there was some sort of enthusiasm looking towards this game?
No, it was more of the same, wasn't it? And it's definitely not 4-3-3. Like, the idea that Njai and Lindstrom as wide forwards is just ridiculous, isn't it? They were more in fullbacks than wide forwards in that setup. So no, it was more of the same, wasn't it? And I think that's the most demoralising thing about this. And I just listened to Rob there and just echo so much of what he said in terms of this goose is cooked now, isn't it? And I think as much as we try and be cautious and don't want to call the people to be sacked and that kind of thing, because it's probably been one of the contributing factors of us being in the situation that we are now. Like, this is truly abysmal. This is one of the worst runs any Everton team has been on in the Premier League. One that is, probably only surpassed by the run we went on last season when we didn't win for, what was it, 13, 15 games, something like that?
Yeah.
We've won 3 games in 19. We've not scored in 8 of our last 10 games. 8. I know there are limitations in it going forward, but I think if you stick a mid-table or bottom-level championship team in the Premier League, I don't think they go that long or that many games without scoring. And like the idea that he obviously gave this the straight back in his press conference in the week about attacking coaches, and I don't think he necessarily needs to bring an attacking coach, but they're not being open to new ideas and new frameworks. It's just weird, and it seems that when he gets into these positions, he feels even more and hopes that something goes our way. And it's not. I listened to Weekly actually, Dave, earlier on today, and I think you made a really interesting point about the draws that we've had this season. And like thinking back through some of them, there's not really been any we took them away from. And I thought, we were unlucky there. We really gave it a good go, and we were the better team, and we pushed, and we really made a good effort, and we couldn't quite get that moment late on. I look at most of them and think we were really lucky not to get beat. Like Newcastle, Pickford makes that save. Obviously, they had no Isak. Brentford, they probably have better chances after going down to 10 men. West Ham, Pickford gets us out to the shit. Arsenal away, Pickford gets us out to the shit. Chelsea's probably quite an even game. City, again, quite an even game, really. But there's not loads of those draws or even any of those draws. We can say we really should have won that game. If anything, it's like, thank God we drew them. The trend has just been has been going downwards for a long time now, hasn't it? This isn't a team that it seems to be showing signs of improvement or is necessarily getting better. I thought it might be when we had those 3 draws, but last games have just proven emphatically again the issues that were there at the start of the season, and he can't fix them. And I don't think that's too much to say. Now he cannot fix this team and cannot get this team without scoring goals. Like Bar Wolves kicking a few in for us a few weeks ago and a deflected shot in that game. Like everything kind of went for us that night. And like that is fundamentally a massive issue. Like I know we sort of gloss over it, but I can't believe that 8 games out of 10 without scoring. No shot on target against today, as you mentioned. We just set up in the hope that we can barely exist in a football match with a very weak pull, and we just hope and cross our fingers that the team are playing are not good enough, or we hope we get lucky, and that's kind of where we're at the moment. And I am just so bored now. I know we're supposed and stuff on here and try and speak with some kind of clarity and proper analysis, but I'm just so bored. I'm fed up of watching this Everton team. I'm fed up with the manager. We're sinking. We are sinking. We're 2 points clear of the relegation zone now. It's gone long enough. And I feel look back at all these numbers in a year's time or 2 years' time, hopefully when we're still in the Premier League and hopefully when we're getting better, and we'll look back and say, what are we waiting for? Like maybe because we're living it now, there's a bit more hesitation from various people at the club.
I think just because it comes down to you here, Rob, just what Matt said there, I think that's really hit the nail on the head here, because we won 3 games in 19 in the league. I'd like to see statistically, people will probably get onto this when they've listened to us, but given where we are in regards to the points we've gained, Everton are B in the bottom 3 on, I presume, would be like 9 times out of 10. Given where we are, given what we've done, given the given the lack of goals we've scored, given the lack of shots we've had, we'll be the bottom apart from Southampton, who look like they're gone already. It feels very, very fortunate that we have these sides in the league. And I think the irony in all that is that Sean Dyche should already have been sacked a long time ago if we were in that sort of situation. The difficult thing for us all to handle now is that we're exactly halfway through a season. Yet there are still ways in which he'd hang on to his job. I don't think he's going to get sacked. I think that's a massive issue. Again, it's something I think that is quite interesting, that you've got new owners there who by and large appear to want to sort of take a step back and see how things operate and various stuff like that. But surely now, when you've seen what you have since you've been even interested in Everton potentially taking them over and what financially will come their way, you'd look and think you'd have serious concerns that Everton are going to be a Premier League side right now.
I'm well beyond that now, and I would say that the two most alarming signs to me are what Matt kind of articulated, which another way of saying that your team never scores. Another way of putting it is they're not really showing much of a pulse. You know what I mean? Because we can't look at any of these games, to Matt's point, even the quote unquote positive results in these draws, and say, well, we were so close. We're getting all these shots on target. There are these chances. We're just, we're snake bit. Or I don't even think we can really, we've got some injuries, but I don't think that our injury it's not a crisis like it's been in other times in our history compared to other places, compared to other squads that we've seen. There's just not. I think that we lose sight of the fact that beyond the like you asked Dave at the beginning about what did you see did you see anything in the formation that felt different, or was there a tactical adjustment made that looks like he was trying something different? I mean, the bottom line is that beyond the tactics and beyond the kind of architectural part of being a manager is all of the intangible stuff of motivation, of building confidence, of deploying a side full of players who not just work hard and just get their steps in. Like I'm all for getting my 10,000 steps in a day if I can, but at the end of the day, it's not really going to be anything that I put on my resume. You know what I mean? Like, who cares at a certain point? They have zero confidence going forward. Part of that is tactics. Part of that is the lack of results. But I'm sorry, a manager's job is bigger than simply picking the 11 and saying go out and do it. It is about taking a group of players and making them greater than the sum of their parts. That's the first thing. The second part of it, and to me, this is the biggest indictment of Sean Dyche, is that he will come out after this post-match and he will look, and really it's kind of the same recurring theme. And you started to notice this pick up more and more in his press availability, which is his sort of tone and position that, hey, I'm doing my part. What could I possibly do to affect any of this? This is on the players. I've set them up. He seems not only allergic to trying new ideas, but he seems particularly defiant in that it's not the approach that's the problem. It's the players. And he keeps kind of hinting at this idea that, well, I mean, look at what I've got. No one could be doing more with this group. And he keeps doing that so much. And you wonder why these players lack confidence. He constantly talks about them as if, he is lucky that they're, that he is able to scrape by in the midst of him using all of his advanced, masterclass, if you will, tactics as a manager, and that this is all he's getting. That is to me, when you are consistently failing, and let's be real, 3 wins in 19 is failure. It's not, the fact that we have draws in this sport is the only thing that's kind of putting any lipstick on this pig. All right. I think that the reason, when you are failing this much and your response to it is consistently, yeah, well, what could I do? I just work here and I've done all I can. If that's your attitude, then it almost doesn't matter why the failure is happening anymore. If you are that consistently committed to an approach that continues to result in the same results, you're not the man for this job anymore. That's the bottom line. Someone else has got to come in and be able to say, look, I'm not going to promise you the world, but I can get more out of this than what this guy is getting out of it. Because Sean Dyche seems particularly committed to the notion that he can't possibly get any more out of this group. And the bottom line is that what we're getting out of this group right now is not enough. What we are getting out of this group right now is going to potentially get us relegated. And that has gone from this could possibly happen notion to feeling quite real now. And the arrogance with which he continues to operate, despite his consistent failure in terms of his team's performance, to me is the very reason why his time ought to be up. This cannot continue to persist. I don't like having to change managers. I don't like the situation, but look, thank him for the job he did if you want to do that, and we move on. But the bottom line is that he had one remit, which was to comfortably keep us in the league getting to next season. And then we could revisit the conversation at that point. He is not delivering on that very modest bar right now. Okay. He's just not. And it doesn't even matter the reasons anymore. He is not doing his job, and he's no longer fit for purpose. It's got to end, and it's got to end as soon as possible.
There's no defense of this, Matt, but we can't avoid talking about what we saw on the pitch and the players' performances. I mean, it takes two to tango, doesn't it? I'm sure that's been used by many managers referring to the players that they put out on that pitch there. Rob says that he's simply not good enough, the manager. You've got to put some of this on the players, though, haven't you? I mean, whoever comes in, no matter. I know it's the thing to address first, is him as the manager. But whoever was to come in, they're going to have serious issues with what they've got to play with, that surely.
We've just seen it so many times. Like, we all know the issues. We've gone through it over and over again. We know that these players can't do the patterns of play. All the buzz phrases that we've all been speaking about months and months and months now. Like, just copy and paste it in from another podcast. But like, I do have to admit, like, every now and then, like, I do get that little nagging doubt in the back of my mind where I think about life at Everton beyond Dyche or after Dyche is sacked, and I think maybe these players are like dreadful, and he's more out of them than even with 3 wins in 19. And maybe he's actually getting more out of them than they're actually worth. And maybe Sean Dyche, as some people say, is nobody could do a better job. And then I sort of try and take a step back and think, like that's ridiculous, isn't it? Like the idea that Sean Dyche, who has been a capable, decent Premier League manager down the years, is the only person who could have Everton in this situation, and this is the absolute best. Like that, like even if like this is not the worst he could get, like this is underperformance, isn't it? Like Rob was saying there, like he's failing to deliver on that basic remit. Like the idea that Dyche, for all his for his qualities as a manager he's shown down the years, is the only person who can have Everton do what they're doing now. I think when you actually take a step back and think about it, is mad. Right? There are other managers out there who you might have someone in mind, be it very possible long term, or you might look at David Moyes for the short term, whatever. There is no way there's not a coach out there who is either available or convinced to come to Everton that can't do better than this. And like, listen, these players are bad. They are. There's the classic saying, Dave, isn't it?
Matt, Vitor Pereira came into Wolves and won 2 games, pretty much falling out of bed, which is hilarious on some level.
And it's one of those like the players are at the moment they all look very, very bad, but it's this idea, and again I think this applies to the attacking side of things as well, where sometimes people shrug their shoulders and go, well, look at the players these got. And this idea that players at that level, and you can't coach bad players into being not as bad players in attack, or you can't coach patterns of play, or you can't get strikers to be a bit more confident or work on different things in training. These things are important. They're as important as going out and signing new players who can improve this thing, going anywhere or improving what you've got. Like players don't just start off and born on the same level throughout their entire career. Yeah. There are massive peaks and troughs based on who they're working with and the systems they're playing in, and how they're adapted throughout their career and how suited it is to them. Like the idea that these players are just, again, when you step back and look at it and think, you look at Calvert-Lewin, who's got 2 goals all season in the Premier League. You look at Harrison, how bad he's playing, Lindstrom, how bad he's playing. In the eye, how isolated he is. Decore, who's has always been a goal scorer and midfielder in the Premier League until this season. Like, there's more to give from those players, I think. And the idea that like it's just that's it. Like this is the level they're playing at, and nobody can get more from it. Again, I just find it a bit ridiculous. So like at times, like I do get a bit scared about the idea of sacking him, like a little bit, because there is so much at stake here. There is a new stadium, there's Premier League survival, we've got new owners, all those things. But it's a bit like being on the Titanic and just slowly sinking down into the cold water, sort of jumping up and trying to make yourself a lifeboat. At the moment, it feels like we're just slowly sinking. And that ice cold Atlantic Ocean is looking more and more welcoming, I think. I got a great message from Gareth Latter, I think his name on Twitter, might have put his second name there. I'm sorry, Rob, you will not get it at all. But he compared Everton to basically watching a tail ender try and bat out the last few overs in cricket. And like every now and then, like there's something like quite thrilling in like day 5, someone digging in, not scoring any runs, like the game's on the line, someone who's really not good at batting against like great bowlers at the end and like charging in. Like, and every now and then, like once every year when you see that, that's gripping. But if you start watching that every week and that was the sport, you'd get bored. Like watching someone not try and do anything. Occupy time just being mean. I just think that's like it's probably the best analogy I've heard on what I like at the moment. It's like I love Jimmy Anderson. It's like watching Jimmy Anderson bat all day for like the last 2 years every weekend, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the 5th day as well, isn't it? Really, you sat there watching Everton, and you've got 5 days after watching absolutely brutal entertainment when you're watching the way in which we play. Two games coming up here, Rob, which you're delightfully joining us, which is which is one positive that we've got to talk about. But we'll get on to that.
In the city instead. Honestly,
I'm say, but you won't find it difficult to get those tickets cheaper. So I hope you haven't bought them already.
Well, I won't be around for Peterborough, but yes, I will. I'll be there for Villa and Spurs.
Just delighted the way you said Peterborough. That's
Peterborough. How do you say it? Peterborough. Peterborough. All right. Yeah. All right.
Oh, you need to laugh at something in this one, don't we? But just before we sort of go towards the end of this one, because like Matt said there's a lot that we refer to constantly. In this, there wasn't much different from what we see from a Sean Dyche performance. I just wonder, when that game's finished, do you feel he's the kind of manager that when they all go back to the dressing room and he absolutely bollocks them all and rips them apart and says, "This is all your fault. This is your fault. Variously, why didn't you finish that chance? Why you let Brooks shoot and score that great goal he did?" Does he strike you as a manager that does that? Because I think that's what he's created. I think that's the mirage he's created as a manager down the years, some sort of hard man who's able to go and do that. So that to me points in the direction. I know Matt didn't want to talk specifically about the players, but getting towards the end of what we're talking about here, do you look at those players and think that they've given up on him as well? We've seemed to have that question quite a lot, given the managers we've had in years gone by. You can sometimes, there's evidence that you can see players just simply not performing for this fella. I'm wondering if you go on the pitch, you take your, put your head on as an Everton player right now and you're going to start. You think of that young lad, young Harrison there when he came on, and you're come on for Sean Dyche here, and you think, I'm really excited, I'm getting some minutes for Everton, this is the start of my new career, blah, 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 that sort of thing. He can't look at Sean Dyche and think, do you know what, he's the kind of manager that I want behind me, and various players that we've got there, and Dye being one as well. I mean, if I was him, I'd be looking. I know he's been great with fans, he's been great in what he said about being at the club, he loves it. Perhaps he does, perhaps he doesn't. That's just nice for the media and whatnot, isn't it? For all of us to get a little warm, nice feeling towards him about. But you can't seriously, if you're his player with his level of talent and the role in which he plays, look at this and think, this guy's getting the best out of me. So surely there must be issues in amongst players that look at this and think, yeah, I can't make myself better than what I am because I've got this fella who's putting me where he wants me to be.
I think it's a really good question, and it's one that makes me think a lot about these same conversations we've had about Everton managers over the last, let's say from basically Koeman forward, right? And what we do is we try to, and let's also be real that we have had quite a variance of personality types, coaching types, management approach types with all these guys, right? You've had everything. I mean, even if you want to loop Roberto Martinez in there, you've had the guy who the fans think is too positive, like toxic positivity, or you have someone who's too hard, or someone who yells too much or doesn't yell enough. And we do this thing where we constantly speculate about, what are the players' failures linked to, right? And some of it, to your point, Dave, is the fact that when you have average to below average talent at your disposal, that it's just going to look not great, sometimes, right? But I also think that there are players who respond favorably to the hard man approach, and there are others who respond. And I do tend to believe that the modern pro athlete of this generation responds more to not just being nice for nice's sake, but truly productive, positive feedback that is not about glossing over the things you do wrong, but is about taking a consistent positive approach so that when you have to give critical feedback, you can be one who's doing it from a position where the player, to your point, Dave, feels supported, who feels like, hey, this guy's got my best interest at heart. All that being said, Dave, I think we have to probably, as fans, take a step back and get out of the business of the psychology of wondering, is Sean Dyche yelling enough? Is he yelling too much? Is he angry enough? Is he too disconnected or indifferent or whatever? And just look at the fact that regardless of what you may imagine is his approach, that it's not working. Whatever it is not working, whether he is taking too hard a touch, too soft a touch. I tend to believe that as players and as people, most athletes can smell bullshit from a manager that they've had for a long enough time. And here's what I would say is, let's say, for instance, that he goes into that dressing room all the time and is trying to big up the players and make them feel good. But how much do you take that at face value as a player if all you do is then hear him turn around and go to the media and talk about how he is performing miracle work by getting as much as he's getting out of this low quality group of players who had no money to spend on, and he's either talking out of both sides of his mouth, or he's consistently making them feel the way that he projects them in the media. And that's the problem, is that there has got to be, and Matt made a good point. I think that Sean Dyche's the biggest effort he puts in mentally every single week is crafting a very careful narrative that once this inevitable end comes, he will be able to say, not my fault. I did all the right things. Look at my track record of keeping teams in the league that I had so little to work with. And if he continues to say that so much and so much and so much, it's no wonder that the confidence of these players is on the floor. And the ones who want to keep playing, like if there is this alleged group of players that play for him that want him to stay and stay the manager, I guarantee you they're exactly the guys that you think they are. They're the ones that know that they start Premier League games or have a Premier League career because of the affinity that Sean Dyche has for them going back to, a certain period of time or whatever history. But I'd also say that letting the, whether you want to say inmates run the asylum or what have you, it doesn't matter. I think that the results have to ultimately speak for themselves. And regardless of the psychology, regardless of the tactics, whatever it is, it's a combination of all these things. And yes, the players need to be better, but I don't get a sense that these players are downing tools. I get the sense that they're working hard, but they are working hard in such an aimless manner that produces so little so consistently that they are both trying hard and despairing all at the same time. And the bottom line from that is that cannot persist, that cannot continue, because that is the toxic path straight to relegation. And that is what has got to change. So you can call it a new manager bounce. You can call it, freshening up the room with just, getting some of this negativity out. You can say whatever it is, but Matt made the best point, I think, of the entire pod, which is that this idea that only Dyche can save us is a fiction created by Dyche for his own edification, and is the kind of toxic truth that people start to, buy into. And then for us to think that the players don't start to buy into that on some level is probably naive. That kind of cancer has got to be removed. There have to be other managers that can get a little bit more and get this squad. And by the way, other than we lost Amadou Onana, who the manager didn't favor anyway. He's playing well at Villa, but we signed players. We have we at least made a couple of additions. If they've been bad additions, then yeah, part of that is on the manager, who goes, to great lengths to say that he gets a big say in who gets signed here. And it also speaks to Kevin Thelwell, who I keep hearing deserves to get a shot to keep his job, but I'm just not convinced that based on what he has done here, he merits that kind of consideration. I mean, look, This thing is calling for a real reset. And I would have been fine if ugly Sean Dyche football would have gotten us safely over this perilous bridge, and, but it's not. His value prop is that I play ugly football, but I keep you up. The trajectory of the table, the results, the lack of goals, the lack of wins fly directly into the face of that collective wisdom that no longer is valid. I don't know how many times I have to say this on this pod, guys. He has to go. This cannot continue, and the sooner the better.
Just to finish off, like, it's like none of this to say what we've just said so far is to say like Dyche has been a dreadful manager for his entire time at Everton. Like, first season came in, did fine. Last season did fine, but as with everything in football and life now, everything just has a shelf life, doesn't it? Ultimately, and things can just go on too long. Like, maybe some people still wear the idea that managers come in and like even more over the course of a decade can slowly build something. Like, those days are gone. Like, I think what Rob was saying about players and how they react to leadership, maybe there's something maybe to get more into in the week. I think a lot more players are more interested in the like analysis side of it and the data and the tactics, and it is percentage football. It is knock it into the channel, and we've got maybe a 30% chance of winning the ball. If we get hold of the ball, we've maybe got a 20% chance of winning a free kick. Stick a free kick in the box, we might have a 50% chance in that. And then if the ball drops to there, maybe like another 25% chance of scoring a goal. I'm sure people did the maths on all those things coming off, it would be quite low. But like that's basically what we're doing, isn't it? It's not emboldening or encouraging footballers to use their ability in inverted commas or blossom or become better. It's dumbing down of everything. And listen, like, I've never been a huge fan of Dyche, really. I appreciate he's done a good job in testing circumstances at times, but this is over now. Like, this can go on. It can be dragged out for long as for the rest of the season, and we might squeak through by a point or two and stay up. But like, it doesn't feel like a 3-game winning streak like it was towards the end of the last season. It feels like this is over and done with, and I almost feel like at this moment in time, just continuing along this path would be more of a risk than going out and getting somebody to come in mid-season and work with a squad of players that isn't great, but does have some ability there. That goal today was embarrassing, wasn't it? Like, from Tarkowski giving away the free kick, from Patterson trying to stop the cross, Mikalenko just turning his back on the ball, and Bronfleet ducking onto the header. Like, that was a pathetic goal to concede. I was watching that second half time, thinking a good team here probably gets something against Bournemouth, because I think they started and played good in the first half, but were really flat after the break and didn't really come out at all. And just kind of the game just ambled along and nothing happened for 30 minutes. And a decent side or an average side probably sees something and scores a goal there. But we were just waiting, weren't we? We were kind of waiting to get beaten, and that's kind of where we're at the moment.
Hey, Matt, to that exact point, I don't think we talk about this enough, but when the other side knows that you have such an anemic attack, it almost creates this strange effect where they know, look, we just got to get one, right? And they put all their energy into just get the one, because if we get one, they're done. They're almost certainly done, because, most of our draws are scoreless draws, if we're being real, I mean, so I think that it's almost adjacent to that idea that we used to talk about center half pairings, and if one of them is really not really lacking confidence and shaky, then it affects everyone else. I think there's the symbiotic effect of not only is Everton's attack bad for Everton in terms of not scoring, but I do think that in some ways it only emboldens the opposition. So this idea that, man, well, Everton play it tight to the vest, and these margins are not that big. I'm sorry, that 1-0. Without Jordan Pickford today, that is a comfortable 3 or 4-0 for Bournemouth today. And let's be real. I mean, that they are like, every side begins to smell the blood in the water. And if you feel like these games all start to look the same, that's not an accident, guys. They look the same because we employ the same tactics, and they look the same because while the opposition changes, they all have the book on Everton under Sean Dyche at this point, and they know exactly what they need to do to beat us. And it generally ends up kind of looking the same, whether they beat us or they get a draw out of it. But they're not teams are not afraid of losing to us at all, and they're barely afraid of us scoring. This cannot continue, because all of these factors just contribute. This feels kind of like, for people who've been watching this for a bit, I remember I used to think this is what West Brom, being a West Brom fan, felt like whenever they'd come up to the Premier League. And I knew as soon as they got promoted that they were never scoring, that the football would be terrible, and that they would just eventually be gone. And now I feel like that's where we're at. And it's got to end. And I don't expect a new manager to come in and perform miracles. But if this thing could be 10 to 15% better, which is really, given how little it is right now, that doesn't feel like a huge ask. 10 to 15% better is what keeps us in the league. And I just also think that if you think this can't get worse, I think you're being naive as well. Yeah. This can get worse, and then the arrow is pointing down. He's got to go.
Yeah. Well, Everton have got 4 of the next 5 games at home, so you will enjoy them coming over to Goodison for that one, Rob.
Don't worry, I'm coming, guys. I'm coming over to get us 6 points against.
Yeah, well, even that game against Peterborough comes out on Thursday as well. I'm not sure anybody's looking forward to that third round game in the FA Cup. I bet you Peterborough are looking forward to coming to Goodison now anyway. We'll wrap things up there. Another dreadful effort from Sean Dyche's side and Sean Dyche himself. How long can this go on? It remains to be seen. 2 huge games. 2 very formidable opposition in Aston Villa and Tottenham are the next 2 Premier League sides to come to Goodison Park. Surely it's time for Sean Dyche and Everton to part ways, but it remains to be seen as we come up on to the coming week. Rob's with us in 10 days, I think it is, a week on Wednesday. He's
be in on the 15th through the 21st, buddy. I will be trying to record as many pods, both the post matches, trying to twist Mosey's arm into getting me some kickabout time, truly with Les as well. And so, if you guys see me out, you'll probably hear me before you see me, because let's just be real, I sound a little different than the locals. So if you hear me, come up, say hello. As always, I love coming home to Liverpool, and I'm really looking forward to the trip.
You'll hear what Americans sound when they boo, which is probably similar. Anyway, on Monday, back to the usual lineup. We've got Blue Monday with myself and Les. Tuesday, byline, which will be really interesting between Matt and Paddy. Weekly mailbag, all to come. And then, Thursday, it's the exciting game against Peterborough in the third round of the FA Cup. So let's all look forward to that. It's a game away from the Premier League, so maybe it gets a little bit better. Anyway, thanks so much for listening to us, as always. And, we all stick together when the Blues are like this. And, I think it's time to try and fight our ways out of the trenches once again, and hope Everton get through to the end of the season, and so we can get into our brand new ground, still a Premier League side. Thanks for listening to us, and dare we say, up the Toffees.